Hi, my name's Phil. I'm the host and creator of the Taming Hindrances podcast, where I talk about what it means to be self-aware and how we apply that to our mental health and a bunch of other things in between. But sometimes I do product reviews, and today is a product review, actually an updated product review on a new version of a product I once went over, and that is Clif High's Pure Sleep, and this is generation number 2. Now, in the first review of this, I mentioned how it was a great product, and well, my opinion really hasn't changed. In my product reviews, I like to put things up front, so let's get into that. This is generation 2 of Clif High's Pure Sleep, and it's the new strawberry flavor. Pretty delicious, actually. So what is it? It's a non-habit forming daily supplement for more restful and restorative sleep, and specifically the non-habit forming means that it doesn't include melatonin, which a lot of the products on the market today do. So this is one that does not. And does it work? Yeah, really well, in fact. Quite well, in fact. So is an improvement over Gen 1, though I think most people who have already tried Pure Sleep and are continuing to do so really want to know what the new generation 2 entails. If you've never tried Pure Sleep, now's a great time to jump into it because this formula is, I would say, way better than the first. Hats off to Clif High and PureBulk for really refining this one. So the improvements, it has a much more positive sleep inducement, specifically about an hour after ingesting. And it's a positive inducement. So like you start yawning, you feel not groggy, not that type of tired, but you just feel like, oh, it's time to go to bed, which is a really nice thing to have in this formula. The last one, that was kind of hit or miss, I think. There's also a clean waking state in the morning, no drowsiness. I haven't experienced any drowsiness with it. So that's a really nice effect. Some sleep aids will leave you kind of with a, not necessarily just groggy, but just a what I call a dirty waking state, which is just like, do I really want to get up? No, this definitely gives you a clean waking state. You're like, nope, I'm up, ready, let's go. Oddly enough, I don't know if this was in the formula to make this happen, but for anyone who's had experience with homeopathic remedies, this has a homeopathic-esque sleeping state to it, and also a decrease to abnormal cycles. What does that mean? Homeopathic medicine, when you take it, they have different side effects that may occur. One of those are what's known as the sleeping states. And the sleeping states are like weird, like, oh, maybe you'll sleep with your arm behind your back, or you'll sleep with your legs crossed, or you'll sleep on your stomach. That's what they call the sleeping states. And this does have not a specific homeopathic-esque sleeping state, but something that I kind of refer to that as. I found myself in just different positions that I normally wouldn't be in, very comfortable, very relaxed, but it definitely had that like, oh, I needed to be in that position for a specific reason feeling to it. And I did notice a decrease to abnormal cycles. So for those of you who aren't aware, in our sleep cycles, we go through light sleep, which is that kind of falling asleep state, but still kind of awake state. Then you usually go into what's known as REM sleep or REM sleep. That's rapid eye movement. That's where we're dreaming and those types of things. That kind of state, daydreamy, dreamy. And then below that is non-REM. And non-REM is probably the most important part of our sleep cycles. Non-REM is non-rapid eye movement. And that's when we're getting our deep restorative sleep. And that's specifically what I believe Clif has really done here is target that non-REM to a great degree in this iteration. So decreasing the abnormal cycles, I didn't find myself going down into non-REM and then popping back up into REM and then kind of fluctuating back between REM and light sleep. I had what felt like a clean cycle between light sleep, REM, non-REM, REM, non-REM. I had a couple occasions where like I had my waking moment, but I'm prone to that. I do the witching hour thing. I wake at, 3 or 4 a.m. That's pretty regular for me, but this definitely showed a, decrease to any abnormality of my cycles, which was really nice to notice. It also had noticeable effects on the body to promote quality of sleep. This has to do when I deep dive into the ingredients, which will come after this part. I really get a nice noticeable feeling of not just, the onset of wanting to fall asleep, that positive sleep inducement, but a relaxation of my breathing. Can definitely feel my lung tissue relaxing, getting the chest cavity to open, really just getting a nice rhythm. That's kind of that homeopathic thing I was talking about as well. But just a nice noticeable feeling of that, a calm state. I didn't have to worry about where are the blankets? Am I comfortable? And, what's my breathing like? What's the temperature in the room? I didn't have a lot of that. I really just had a very nice, noticeable effect to just, okay, I'm relaxed. I can go to bed. This is nice. And then bonus, it tastes good. It's not overwhelming flavor. Strawberry flavor is really just a good strawberry flavor. I was not a huge fan of the previous version of the dragon fruit. Didn't hate it, but it did, not everybody's a big fan of dragon fruit, and that was pretty prominent in the last iteration. This is strawberry, and yeah, it tastes good. So that being said, let's dive a little deeper in here, and we'll get into the deep dive overview, as I like to do with my reviews. Fun stuff up front, real deep stuff after. So here's the deep part of it. Clif has definitely incorporated a couple different approaches here in the Gen 2 formula. The original formula, I believe he was basing off of Ayurvedic methods. This one definitely takes into account a different set of methods, I think. And I haven't talked to him about it. I'm not completely sure, but this is my findings of kind of going over the ingredient list and the interactions. So in Eastern and Western medicines, when you come up with a formula known as a supplement, there's some different methodology. And it looks like he's using kind of all three. And there's three real major methodologies. And again, he's using all three of those, I think. And the two Eastern methods are the Chinese traditional method, or TCM method, known as the synergistic approach. And the synergistic approach is when you pick a specific ingredient known as the mother ingredient, and then all of the other ingredients after that are to bring out a specific effect of the mother ingredient. He's certainly using that. But then there's the Ayurvedic method, and the Ayurvedic method is a little bit of a change to the synergy approach. It's kind of like a multi-tiered approach. I call it the tiered system, where you have, they don't necessarily call it the mother ingredient, but you have specific hierarchies of ingredients. So you have like this ingredient, you have ingredients, let's just say X and Y, and those are supposed to have the most effect. And then you'll have X1 and X2, and Y1 and Y2, and those are two extra ingredients for each one to, again, do the synergy approach or those types of things. So Ayurvedic uses more of a tiered method. TCM uses a specific, like there's just one specific ingredient, known as the mother ingredient, and then they use the synergy effect after that. The Western supplement system is more of like, throw everything we can at it. It's the kitchen sink method, I call it. Just what's good for sleep. Let's just throw all of that in there and see what happens. That's more of how the Western does. And not to say that's what Clif did here, but he did use some other things where he kind of blended in that, like, oh no, this is good for that too. So it gives like a tiered synergistic approach. I really like the approach he took as far as the ingredients go. The product formula is designed to make you fall asleep, stay asleep, get a restful sleep, really get you into that non-REM cycle. And as I talked about in the opening there, non-REM is really where we do our deep restorative sleep. That's where we get oxidative stress reduction. We get DNA repair, RNA repair. We get a lot of different muscle repair functions that don't happen during non-REM. Athletes, it's really important for non-REM. Older individuals, really important to get non-REM sleep. It keeps you younger longer. Andrew Huberman does a lot of stuff on this. Go check out his work if you want to understand why sleep is really important. You can head to sleep.com too. That's another good resource to read about why sleep is really important and the different cycles and functions of sleep. But again, hats off to Clif and PureBulk on this one. Or as I usually say, tip my beanie to them because I don't really wear hats. But they've put this together in an almost spectacular fashion. The ingredient list is so in-depth, yet kept to a minimum, but their interactions are fascinating. I had a great time doing the deep dive on this one. So again, tip my beanie to them on this one. Let's get into the ingredients here. A carryover from the first generation is GABA, gamma-aminobutyric acid. And GABA is a neurotransmitter. It's anti-anxiety, and specifically it helps with that non-REM cycle. It's what gets us into, we need GABA to get into our non-REM cycles. It helps manage anxiety. It can stabilize blood pressure. It also might help lower blood pressure for those who suffer from hypertension. and can help inflammation, does have some effects with that. That's part of the non-REM cycles, is we get rid of oxidative stress, which is removal of inflammation. Inflammation is, in my personal opinion, and quickly catching on to mainstream Western medicine, the root of all, like 80% of all diseases, inflammation. So inflammation that's stagnant and sticking around, we don't want that. Get that out of there. That helps us make us more healthy. Next ingredient, and I'm doing this as listed on the package by order. So, most highest level concentration at the top and then tapers off from there. So magnesium's next up, and there's two versions of magnesium in this blend. There's magnesium glycinate and there's magnesium citrate. So we'll cover magnesium first. Essential mineral, protects metabolic health. It's a mood stabilizer, increases GABA, which is handy. It's involved in over 300 different enzyme-related reactions. Some research says 400, some says 300. I always take the lower of the two. Specifically, though, magnesium is required by every cell in the human body. Every one of your cells needs magnesium. That is why it's one of the essential minerals. If you want to know more about vitamins, minerals, check out my deep dive on vitamins and my upcoming deep dive on the essential minerals. But magnesium plays a key role in ATP production. That's our energy production. Our body, our muscles, they use ATP to do things. That's our active version of, like, you take sugar, glucose, or carbohydrates, and you turn them into ATP and use that to move. It regulates essential mineral transport, such as calcium and potassium, which is really important. Again, every cell in the body needs magnesium for this. It regulates blood pressure, can control cholesterol production, controls blood glucose levels, which is important specifically for anyone who has a wake state that is sensitive to their blood glucose. So if you ate a little ice cream before bed, magnesium might help out with that, keeping you from waking up in the middle of the night. It's part of our bone development, super important. It's in every one of our cells. Another specific reason that it's helpful for sleep is it helps control our stress response and hormones, specifically our cortisol levels and serotonin levels. So it's helpful there. Now, let's break this out a little further, though, because there is two versions. There's glycinate and magnesium citrate. The glycinate is a chelated bonded magnesium and glycine pair. So chelated just means bonded. And that aids absorption. So it helps the magnesium get through our gut system and our gut biome and get absorbed better through the intestinal wall. Now, the additive of glycine here is important because now glycine is an amino acid and it's also a neurotransmitter. And glycine specifically can help us to fall asleep quicker, and it also helps improve our sleep quality. So that's super important. It will increase our sleep efficiency. It also reduces insomnia. So all of these things are a benefit to our sleep. And it also aids in a bunch of other functions in the body. So that non-REM cycle you're going into, glycine's can be being used for the following. I'm just going to go through these quickly. It's a protein builder via collagen production. It's digestive aid. It helps with DNA and RNA production. Now, again, non-REM, that's when you do your DNA and RNA repair, so that's helpful. Regulates blood sugar, moves blood sugar shell to different tissues that you consume it for energy, aids inflammation responses, and it stimulates and inhibits cells as a neurotransmitter. Again, gets specific to our serotonin, cortisol balancing, those types of things. Magnesium citrate is a magnesium bonded with citric acid. And the citric acid side of this helps regulate digestion. It can help prevent muscle spasticity and spasms. So think restless leg syndrome. If you're someone who suffers from that, or someone who does, citric acid can help with that. It's just the function of vitamin C is what we're talking about here when we talk about citric acid. So that combo of magnesium and citric acid together helps fight spasticity. Citric acid, vitamin C, cardiovascular aid. And there's the citric acid cycle known as the Krebs cycle. And the Krebs cycle is one of the specific cycles that balances out GABA and glutamate. It uses vitamin B6 pyridoxine as a cofactor for that. Again, if you want to know more about this, check out my deep dive on vitamins. I go over all of this. But vitamin C in that citric acid cycle, the Krebs cycle, is constantly checking our levels of GABA and glutamate and making sure they're balanced. That's one of its functions. Vitamin C is also used in a bunch of other functions in the body that are played out during our sleep cycles. So always good to have it in the system. Moving on, we have sunflower lecithin. I may be pronouncing that wrong. I think I always get it wrong, but anyway, it's an emulsifier, and that's really what it's commonly used for as an additive. It stabilizes mixtures to prevent separation. It also aids in absorption of fat-soluble vitamins, minerals, and supplements. So when I get to the directions on use, this will make more sense. But because this mix is recommended to be used with milk, specifically whole milk, this is where that comes into effect. It keeps the separation from happening, allows it to be an emulsifier, which allows the fat-soluble vitamins to get encapsulated with a fat and then more readily available to the gut biome and digestion. We'll get into that a little bit later. It also contains some vitamins and minerals, such as phosphorus, potassium, calcium, iron, choline, and inositol. Really important here, though, that phosphorus and well, they're all important, but the phosphorus, we use phosphorus in our body to create bioactive ingredients or bioactive versions of things. So you get a phosphate, super important part of the whole digestive process, and then turning things into things and how we use different vitamins and minerals and supplements. So that helps with that. It may also help with the following: might reduce cholesterol, improve digestion, support skin health, and boost brain function. That has to do with some of those extra pieces it had, like iron and calcium and those things. So next is Mogricide 5 or Mogricide V, which is a monk fruit extract. Monk fruit extract was in the original Generation 1 formula. This is now more specific. It's the Mogricide 5, and it's anti-inflammatory and antioxidant. Now, monk fruit itself is known as Li Hao Hua in Chinese traditional medicine, and that has a bunch of different uses. It does have anti-inflammatory properties. Its moguricides, which are the sugar substitutes that we use, there's a ton of benefits that they have. And I believe there's 5 or 6 of them. You'd have to look that up. But they're really well known as a sugar substitute because they have little to no effect on our glycemic index. So the insulin response production for these is little to nothing. They're natural sweeteners. In this case, Mogricide 5 has been tested. It's 250 times that of sucralose, which is just your regular, sugar that you would usually use, or table sugar. And again, little to no glycemic index effect. It's now Mogricide 5 specifically is a triterpenoid. Thinks natural steroid. That's what triterpenoids are. If you've ever studied anything about the cannabis market, medical marijuana, the terpenoids are one of the most important parts of those plants. It's the terpenoids that get provided to us, and they're natural steroids. They're antioxidants, all sorts of other effects. Now, specifically the antioxidant effect here in Mogricide 5 is the 7-oxy Mogricide 5 and the 11-oxy. Now, or oxo, that just is the amount of oxygen that they can collect and then get rid of. I won't get into the specifics of it, but those two specific pieces are the bioavailable versions our body creates to go around and become free scavengers of the antioxidants. Super helpful. It also has been studied for its anti-tumor properties and includes those related to pancreatic and lung cancer. So interesting effect there. Now we know, or I don't know, maybe I'm not allowed to make that statement, but there's a strong correlation to sugar intake and tumor growth. They're correlated. So this being a non-glycemic index sugar substitute essentially, but also having antioxidant properties, it gets really complicated, but really interesting with that triterpenoid side of things. So just beneficial to have, and also helps with our sleep cycles. Next is allergic acid, and it's this is a polyphenol extract from pomegranates. which is a whole process I'm not going to go over, but interesting to look into. And it has shown anticholinergic properties, which is it's an acetylcholine blocker. And that's specifically to the signaling of the parasympathetic nervous system involving involuntary muscles. So you have your sympathetic nervous system, your parasympathetic nervous system. Think parasympathetic is our rest digest. It's our okay, we're gonna chill. But it's all, I'll use the word subconscious, but it's involuntary muscle movements. Involuntary means we don't necessarily have control over them. Think about your breathing when you're not thinking about it. Bodily functions like digestion, those are involuntary, and they're all controlled by the parasympathetic nervous system. So what is ellagic acid good for in this sense? It helps with the signaling and may prevent nocturia. Now, nocturia is when you have to, wake up and go to the bathroom more often than not while sleeping. That's what nocturia is. So what it does is it may reduce the signaling of a full bladder, which allows you to kind of sleep through that without being told like, hey, your bladder's full, get up and go to the bathroom, even though it's not completely full and you could just be sleeping. So nice function there. It also helps relax lung tissue to help regulate breathing. That's that really nice relaxed effect that I was talking about in the beginning, where we just go, oh man, my breathing's natural. It feels good. It also may have effect on saliva and tear production. So I did note a couple times, every once in a while I'll burn some incense before bed, and the combo of this plus the incense gave me a little bit of a dried eye situation. No big deal, but in case you do notice that, just know this is most likely the ingredient that's causing that. Now, it's also an antioxidant, which means it's a free radical scavenger. It's an anti-inflammatory, and it has been shown or may help to decrease the function of prostaglandin E2 and interleukin-6. These are both inflammation markers in the inflammation process, and high levels of those markers are typically involved with individuals who are suffering from autoimmune diseases, something else you can go look into. And there's some data to support the following, that it's an antiviral. It's a topical anti-inflammatory and helps prevent wrinkles. It slows the production and formation of fat cells. And there's a big and here, anti-cancer effects. Now, it's interesting to note that the FDA has warned on numerous occasions companies that it's a false anti-disease thing. So the FDA considers it a fake cancer cure. And there are studies showing evidence of the contrary. So I just thought I'd mention that. Moving on. So I'll probably get in trouble if I continue on that route. Tricalcium phosphate. That's the next ingredient. And it's calcium bond into a phosphorus. Remember I mentioned phosphorus and how we use it to do make phospholates, which is how we create bioactive versions of things that our body can use. So tricalcium, calcium. It's used in converting tryptophan to melatonin. So it's important for inducing a sleep state, aiding in keeping us asleep, and helping regulate our sleep cycles. Calcium is what we use, again, to convert tryptophan to melatonin. Melatonin is what our body uses to go through its sleep cycles. Super important. Phosphorus is essential for cell health, specifically the membranes and signaling. It also helps with ATP production, and it's used in nucleic acid functions, so DNA and RNA, which, again, non-REM, DNA and RNA repair. So you need some phosphorus. It's also important for bone mineralization processes, specifically on the osteoblastic, which means blastic means create bone, clastic means absorb bone. It's a super important function the body goes through, again, while we're sleeping. Next up, I'm going to get this one wrong, but I believe it's myrcin or myrcin. And it's from nutmeg oil extract. So again, a carryover from the original generation 1 is the nutmeg oil thing. Or nutmeg. This is now we're getting very specific here. This is myrcin, which is a nutmeg oil extract, and it improves the quality and duration of sleep. It is anticholinergic. See remember the allergic acid we talked about, the involuntary muscles thing, helping with breathing, relaxing the lungs. Might even help a little bit of regulating the heart rate, digestive system, keeping us from having any like muscle spasms, those types of things. It may help in controlling insomnia, and its other associations are anti-inflammatory, immune support, digestive aid, antimicrobial and bacterial. And then specifically, nutmeg has an antidepressant property as both a stimulant and a sedative. I would imagine myrcin being from nutmeg oil extract, it carries over some of those products pieces. And then it also made in regulating blood pressure, circulation, and respiratory functions. So I'll get into this a little bit more, but when I was talking about how they really put together, or Clif and PureBulk put together a synergetic approach to things, you can start to see how some of these things really line up, and they start kind of like, oh, we have these anticholinergics, which helps with all these different, getting a normal restorative breathing cycle and sleep cycle. Really put a lot of thought into this. Next up, Betanin, which is from red beetroot extract, which is something that has been hot in the health industry for a long time now, specifically red beetroot extracts. So it's a bioavailable betaline, and betalines are, well, they're complicated, but there's a bunch of studies. There's a bunch of different ones. Almost every plant has one, some more so than others. But this one specifically, Betanin, is one of the only ones that's been approved as a food additive. It's specifically usually used as a dye, but just as a blanket statement here, do your own research, don't believe anything I say, but properties researched, effects, claims, possible cures, and health benefits may include antioxidant. So this is actually specifically known as a good electron donor. Anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, antiviral, antifungal, anti-cancers. Betalins have been patented in the USA as a component of anti-cancer drugs. Kind of crazy, actually. That was a deeper rabbit hole that I went off on this one when I was doing the deep dive here. But neuroprotective, hepatoprotective, anti-lipidemic, anti-carcinogen, anti-apoptotic. The rabbit hole is deep on betalines. And again, betanin's one of the only ones that's ever been approved by the FDA for food additives. And they usually use it as a dye. So yeah, super interesting. Other ingredients are organic cane sugar and natural strawberry flavor. Now, fun fact, strawberries are one of the natural sources of allergic acid. So things start to come together here when you think about that and why this one's flavored with strawberry flavoring. So again, very interesting. The kind of the combinations they put together here to get the correct effects. Now, lastly, we have to add in that milk is a ingredient here because it's the directions advise taking Pure Sleep in milk or a milk substitute for the best results. And following the directions is highly recommended for optimum use. Now, milk includes tryptophan at low levels, which is an amino acid that aids in serotonin production. We talked about how calcium helps turn tryptophan into melatonin. Milk also includes melatonin, which is our sleep hormone and regulates our circadian rhythms, which are those cycles of light sleep, REM, non-REM. And it's really most notable here for its ingredient interactions. It's protecting some things from our acid in our stomach to help aid in absorption. It's allowing other things to, use the tryptophan, use the melatonin. A bunch of things are going on here. So as I said in the beginning, is the Generation 2 formula a better formula? Absolutely. Top to bottom, hands down, tip my beanie. Great job. But here are my final thoughts. It's really thought out, highly effective, and just well implemented. It has multiple ingredient interactions. Again, the synergistic effect, the tiered effect, and even just the, throw some things at it effect. But the way in which I think they went about picking and choosing really reduced the volume per serving. So I think they took almost 1,000 milligrams off of the original Generation 1 to Generation 2. I think the original formula was like 3,200 or 3,400 milligrams per dose. This one's down to 2,200, which is awesome. They also even put thought into the packaging. So part of coming up with the Generation 2 formula, as far as I understand, was they were having trouble keeping Gen 1 in stock. One, because it was good and people were using it, it was awesome, but also because some of the ingredients were hard to come by. So they had trouble, producing enough for demand. This, on the other hand, much easier, I believe, to source the ingredients, and also they've changed the packaging around a little bit. So the packaging is clean, really nice, I always liked PureBulk's packaging, but they reduced it waste. So it used to come in this big bag because you needed more of it per serving. Now the servings are still the same. It's still 60 per container. But again, when you're at 32 to 3,400 milligrams per serving, and now you're down to 2,200, less grams per packaging. So that's cool. They now have, you can buy the little screw top container, and then they have refill packages, which are cheaper actually, which is really nice that, you know, okay, cool. I have my nice airtight screw on top, keep everything. I keep mine in my fridge, but you know, keep everything nice. But then you can just buy the little tiny refill packages to fill that back up. Super handy, super nice, really good on the packaging side. But getting back into the product itself, it just has a positive sleep inducement about an after hour ingesting, and it really comes with some heavy yawning. Now, I will say I'm one of the individuals that it's a rarity for that I do require to take melatonin. Due to my job, I don't get a lot of sunlight. I don't get a lot of natural light. I'm just in a dark room I'm a massage therapist. So that's what I do for, 40 some hours a week. So that is me personally. I did find though, even without taking the melatonin, I was still getting deep, heavy yawning and being like, oh, I'm going to go to bed. Like, this is great. So that's nice. It has a real positive sleep inducement. It's clean waking state, no drowsiness, homeopathic as sleeping states, decrease the abnormal cycles. My wake state wasn't as much. I definitely think there was the, help with not having to get up and go to the bathroom type of thing. I still had my normal witching hour waking, but that's just, something I've always had. So no problem there. It's got noticeable effects on the body to promote the quality of sleep. Again, with the just relaxation of breathing. The taste is better than the dragon fruit, in my personal opinion. Really nice, just natural strawberry flavor. Doesn't taste chemically at all. So it's almost like strawberry milk, but like natural strawberry milk. My suggestions on use though, follow the directions at first and then experiment a little bit. So I actually take mine in water because I don't keep milk in the house, but what I do keep in the house is yogurt. So sometimes I'll take it with water, and I have tried that. It did work just about the same. I actually get a little bit better of effect with water, but that's just me personally because of my digestion and my diet. So that's why I say follow the directions at first. At first 3 or 4 days, I think it was the first 3 days, I took it with milk to try it out, see what it was like. And then I kind of started tweaking it a little bit. My favorite way to take it is actually my favorite way to take the original version, to mix it into some yogurt and just eat it as a snack before bed. That's my personal way. So again, do some experimenting, but follow the directions at first and really get a feel for it before you start messing around. In this version, oddly enough, I take my normal 3 milliliter dose, which is a half a teaspoon, is a little over half. It's 2.5 milliliters. So you just go a little bit extra and gets your 3 milliliter dose, or 2,200 milligrams. In case you don't have the little scooper, PureBulk.com has the awesome little measures you can get. They have like every type, every size in plastic, or they have some nice stainless steel sets. So, but yeah, I didn't have to up my dose, which I usually have to do because I'm 270 pounds. So I usually have to take a little bit more of something to get the same effects. I didn't have to do that here, which is really nice. So overall, I would actually get more use out of this new generation than I did in the last. The last, I used to have to up my dose a little bit to get the same effects. So that's really nice, which is a solid positive that they did some research and they came up with a better formula. And then I also suggest use it in accordance with your routine. Don't fight the sleepy feeling. Just go to bed. Stop trying to watch, whatever on YouTube. Just go to bed when you get the sleepy feeling. Don't fight it. If you do fight it, you might get some opposite effects you're not really a fan of. So that's why I say just use it in your normal routine. Look up why routine is important for sleep cycles. It is very important. And then regular use seems to be affordable and effective. I think it comes out to about $1.50 a day, $1.50 per dose, somewhere around there. Which, to be honest, is really not bad in the market right now. There's some other way less effective items out there that even melatonin is, somewhere at the 30 cents per dose or something, depending on I take a big dose. So I guess I can't give you a correct comparison there, but just melatonin alone is going to be X per day. So $1.50 a day for what it does, I really do just recommend this as just a routine sleep aid. The quality of sleep we are now finding is the most important part of your sleep. It's not how much you get, it's the quality of it. And that comes down to routine and something like this that gives you a good quality, non-habit inducing product, so highly recommended. Product is available in the link in the description below. There's a 10% off coupon code if you use taminghindrances.com. That's built into the link in the description below. Try it out. If you're already using Gen 1, totally jump on board with Gen 2. And come check us out on taminghindrances.com for more product reviews. Check out the archive for all sorts of different resources. And again, thanks, Clif. Awesome job. Thanks, PureBulk, for being a great company. Take care.